Hello dear friends, today is August 4th, 2025, and you're watching our traditional frontline map update. The main developments are still taking place in the South Donetsk and Pokovsk directions, as well as in the Civk and Krasny Leman areas. In addition, there are important events unfolding in the Sumy direction. We'll discuss and show everything in detail in today's video report. I will also try to present some footage from the Oricov, Kherson, and Konstantinovka sectors. But before we begin the briefing, I'd like to ask you, as always, to subscribe to the channel. If you've been watching our videos for a while but haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to do so. Your support is crucial for the continued development of this channel. Let's start with the Kherson direction. Today, 5 airstrikes were reported by the Russian army. The main strikes targeted the areas of Olgovka, Tokarevka, Sadovo, and Antonovka. We also have footage from one of these locations where a bridge leading to the islands was destroyed. All signs point to Russian forces preparing a foothold here. The destruction of the bridge suggests preparations for a possible amphibious landing. As seen in the footage, a FAB-3000 aerial bomb was used, which completely destroyed the bridge. Everything indicates that an operation to land troops and bypass Kherson may be in the works. Moving on to Pridniprovsk. Previously, Russian forces took control of this settlement. There were also reports that all residential buildings in the area came under Russian control, although the Ukrainian side denies this. According to available data, Ukrainian forces repelled about 7 attacks during the night, and 3 more were pushed back in the morning. However, the raising of the Russian flag in the area confirms that it is indeed under Russian control. Along the entire line of contact, FPV drones are actively used by both sides. Artillery is also heavily engaged. Russian forces are striking Ukrainian positions, while Ukrainian artillery is targeting Russian personnel. That concludes the Kherson segment. Now let's move to the Oricov direction. We begin with the Mala Tokmachka area. Positional battles continue both in Mala Tokmachka itself and in Belogoria. Attacks on Russian positions near Novopokrovka are also being reported, but no significant changes to the front line have occurred. There are also updates from Novoandreevka, Oricov, and Rabotino. The situation there remains largely the same, with ongoing positional fighting. In the Malye-Shcherbaki area, Ukrainian forces attacked Russian positions, while Russian troops struck Ukrainian positions near Pavlovka. FPV drones remain the primary tool of engagement on both sides. Now to Plavny. Many commenters have pointed out that this settlement is mostly under Russian control. However, we're referring to a specific area where fighting was recorded. While formal control by the Ukrainian armed forces remains disputed, recent video shows Ukrainian troops freely moving through the area and using armored vehicles to transport personnel. These columns are being targeted, and part of the landing forces have been destroyed, though perhaps not entirely. Nevertheless, the very fact that armored vehicles are operating here suggests that this area is firmly under Ukrainian control. If it were a grey zone, only small recon units would operate, and vehicles wouldn't be able to move freely. So we can confidently say that this section is held by Ukrainian forces. Moving on to the Zelenopol settlement. Russian troops here are advancing toward Kamyshevaka, as mentioned in the previous update. Today, reports emerged that the Russian-controlled zone has significantly expanded, and the entire pocket adjacent to the area has come under Russian control. Clearing and demining operations are underway. As a reminder, when positions are abandoned by either side, they are often heavily mined. The area between Novopole and Novodarovka is now also under full Russian control. New information today suggests the front line has been aligned from Timirovka to Levadnoye. This is likely the current state of the front line. We will update the map as new materials come in. The next sector includes the settlements of Alexandrogorod and Seknevo. Russian forces are trying to advance toward Alexandrogorod while simultaneously striking Seknevo. However, Alexandrogorod is the key node in this area, and the main Russian forces are concentrated there. There is a high probability that assault operations may begin later this week. We'll see how the situation develops. As for the Andreevka-Klevtsovo area, Russian artillery is actively striking Ukrainian positions. No assaults have begun yet, but it's likely that such actions could start early next week. The settlement is effectively cut off from supply routes, and surrounding areas are being cleared. While no longer under Ukrainian control, these zones may still be mined or contain isolated Ukrainian units. We will update the map as more information becomes available. Now we turn to Novoukrayinka. Yesterday, reports indicated that Russian forces were expanding their control north of the settlement. Today, new footage from frontline positions confirms that the entire area is now under Russian control. The advance here totals around 4 kilometers. Everything suggests that the front line is being aligned from Oricov to Udakno. Oricov is here, and Udakno is in this area. The main Russian focus is now on Donetsk Oblast, where efforts are being concentrated. The sector in question is already within Donetsk Oblast. Dnipropetrovsk Oblast begins just beyond it. Current attention is on Moravka and Udakno. Let's start with Moravka. Reports indicate that the Russian army continues to strike Ukrainian positions in the area, with attacks ongoing. Ukrainian fortified positions west of the settlement, home to a strong defensive line with numerous foxholes, are also under fire. Meanwhile, Ukrainian FPV drone crews from Novopavlovka are actively targeting Russian forces trying to advance toward Moravka. At the moment, Ukrainian defenses in Moravka are holding, but it's possible that the situation could soon shift in Russia's favor. Russian-controlled territory is already expanding from the direction of Kotlyarovka, moving toward Moravka. Now we move to the area around the settlement of Udakno. According to some reports, the Ukrainian side has claimed to have pushed back Russian forces in this sector of the front. Previously, Russian troops had reached an important supply road and taken effective control over it. However, according to the latest statements by the Ukrainian armed forces, a counterattack was launched that allegedly forced Russian positions to retreat. This information requires further confirmation before any updates can be made to the map. At present, the situation on the map looks as follows. Russian forces continue to exert pressure on the eastern outskirts of Udakno, while also advancing toward the supply road from the west. If it is confirmed that the road has indeed fallen under Russian control, and that Udakno has been bypassed from the rear, it is likely that within a week or two, this settlement could fall completely under Russian control. As for the settlement of Kotlino, no changes have been recorded there so far. Now turning to the Pokovsk direction. Today, a video was published from one of the frontline positions. Previously, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that the settlement of Novoukrayinka had come under Russian control. However, we've seen in the past that not all information coming from the Defense Ministry is confirmed in practice. Today, though, there is visual confirmation. A Russian flag has been raised at a specific point, and Russian forces have advanced up to 1 kilometer in that area. According to pro-Russian sources, Russian troops continue to advance toward the settlement of Chunshino, as Ukrainian forces are retreating to better prepared and fortified defensive lines near Novopavlovka. If the current pace continues, it is likely that Chunshino will come under Russian control by the end of the week. Now on to the Civk direction. As previously reported, Russian forces have taken control of several settlements here, and there is video footage confirming this, although, for obvious reasons, it cannot be posted on YouTube. These clips are available on various Telegram channels. Russian forces continue to clear one of the Ukrainian strongpoints in this sector. Footage shows the sequence. First, FPV drone strikes, then artillery and air support, followed by airborne units advancing in armored vehicles. They went on to clear a line of Ukrainian trenches. The video is quite graphic and thus cannot be shared on open platforms. Additionally, today saw an expansion of the Russian-controlled zone by approximately 1.5 kilometers in one sector. Along with what was reported yesterday, there are new data indicating continued clearing of territory. It is reasonable to assume that by the end of the week, the entire pocket in this area may come fully under Russian control. Next, the Krasny Leman direction. The settlement of Torskoye is now fully under Russian control, as confirmed by the raising of the Russian flag. Clearing operations are underway in the surrounding forested areas. There are reports that Ukrainian forces are abandoning positions in the Serebryansky forest. If this information is confirmed and the Ukrainian military does withdraw, Russian forces will be able to solidify their hold on the region. Consequently, the Russian-controlled zone on the map will expand. As for the settlement of Kolodezi, earlier reports indicated that most of it was already under Russian control. However, there is no official confirmation as of today, so the changes in this sector cannot yet be considered verified. There are also reports that Russian forces are advancing toward the settlement of Shandrigolovo along a key supply road. This was also mentioned in the previous update. No new data from this sector have emerged today. The settlements of Novi Mir and Olgovka have also seen combat activity. Ukrainian forces were confirmed to be present in these areas based on recent clashes. Therefore, this area remains under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces, and the map has been updated accordingly. As a reminder, there had been assessments suggesting that Ukrainian forces might attempt to break through to the supply road in order to isolate the Russian grouping in Grekovka and encircle it. However, no significant changes have occurred in this sector so far. Now let's shift focus to the Kupansk direction. A video released today shows a camouflaged Ukrainian T-64 tank being destroyed. The footage itself is not essential to show, but it confirms the strike. It's also worth noting that 2 days ago, Russian forces made advances in this area, but since then, no major updates have been reported. Fighting continues here in a positional format along the entire line of contact. A similar situation is observed in the Kharkiv direction, particularly in the areas of Veliki Burluk and Volchansk. Intense fighting is ongoing in Volchansk, but the front line remains unchanged. No updates were received today from the Lipsty area. Moving to the Sumy direction. Heavy fighting continues near Unikivka and Sadki. There is also information from Alexeyevka, where Ukrainian forces attempted a counterattack against Russian positions. A group of approximately 40 personnel was completely wiped out. A video confirming this was already published yesterday. Ukrainian forces advanced about 2 kilometers toward Alexeyevka, but nearly the entire group was eliminated during the approach. Those who managed to reach the outskirts were subsequently destroyed. As a result, the Ukrainian offensive failed and incurred heavy losses. It is known that the Ukrainian side is preparing 2 more attacks on Alexeyevka. However, it is highly likely that these assault groups will also be destroyed on approach, primarily through the use of FPV drones. As for Konstantinovka, no attacks on the settlement have been recorded at this time. However, Ukrainian positions in Kondratovka and Andreyevka are being struck. Russian forces are actively using drones, artillery, and air power in these sectors. So far, no significant changes have been observed. In the coming days, another Ukrainian attempt to storm Alexeyevka is expected. We'll see whether they succeed or if the scenario with heavy losses repeats itself. That's all for now. Thank you for your attention, and until next time.